You think you know Atlantis. You picture high-tech underwater cities, flying machines, and power sources built from giant, pulsating crystals. You imagine a global civilization, a mother culture that taught the Egyptians and the Mayans how to build pyramids. You might even think we found its ruins beneath the sands of the Sahara or off the coast of the Bahamas. But here is the single most critical concept for understanding Atlantis theories. The story Plato told is not the story you believe. The real story of Atlantis begins not as a history, but as a warning. And the futuristic, crystal-powered utopia that everyone is searching for? That version of Atlantis is a 19th and 20th century invention. Today, we go beyond known history to uncover how a simple philosophical parable became the world's greatest obsession, and how three individuals transformed a cautionary tale of greed into a full-blown science fiction mythology. To find the true origin of Atlantis, you must travel back to Athens around 360 BCE and look at the work of one man, the philosopher Plato. The entirety of the original legend comes from a single source, two Socratic dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. The story does not appear anywhere else in ancient Greek history or literature. Plato, however, didn't just claim he made it up. He wrapped his tale in a convoluted narrative device to make it sound powerful and ancient. The character Critias claims he heard the story from his grandfather, who heard it from the lawmaker Solon, who in turn was supposedly told the history by Egyptian priests at the city of Sais. By invoking the immense authority and perceived ancient wisdom of Egypt, Plato gave his story a powerful, quasi-sacred weight. But scholars are overwhelming in their consensus. Atlantis is a fictional parable. Plato's narrative was fundamentally a slow tale of two cities. The ideal, an idealized, virtuous, and just ancient Athens. The counter-ideal, Atlantis, a mighty island kingdom located in the Atlantic Ocean, specifically beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which unambiguously meant the Strait of Gibraltar to the Greeks. Atlantis was a vast naval power that became crippled with wealth and greed, descending into imperial hubris. The Atlanteans launched an unprovoked imperialistic war to enslave the free peoples, but the smaller, virtuous Athens stood alone and defeated the invading empire. The crucial twist? The collapse was divine punishment. The gods unleashed a cataclysm, violent earthquakes and floods that caused the entire island of Atlantis to sink into the sea in one terrible night. The message was clear. This was a cautionary tale against the corrupting influence of wealth and imperialism. Plato may have even been referencing the disastrous Athenian invasion of Sicily in 415 BCE as inspiration for Atlantis' hubristic fall. Plato's Atlantis was an advanced, wealthy, Bronze Age empire, impressive for its metallurgy and canals, but it did not have flying cars or lasers. So if Plato created a Bronze Age fable, where did the sci-fi version come from? The answer lies not in ancient history, but in the spiritual fervor and pseudoscience of the 19th and 20th centuries.
For over 2 millennia, Plato's story was almost universally understood as fiction. But in the late 1800s, three powerful figures transformed everything. The architect, the mystic, and the psychic rewrote the legend completely, turning a philosophical fable into a veritable history. The architect, Ignatius Donnelly, 1882. The modern belief in a historical Atlantis begins in 1882 with U.S. Congressman Ignatius L. Donnelly and his book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. Donnelly argued that Atlantis was a real, massive continent, and, critically, that it was the cradle of all civilization. Donnelly championed hyperdiffusionism, the theory that all great ancient civilizations, Egyptian, Mayan, Incan, did not develop independently, but were instead colonies founded by survivors who fled Atlantis before it sank. This book is the true origin of the idea that Atlantis was the source of all human knowledge. The mystic, Helena Blavatsky, 1888. Donnelly's ideas were immediately absorbed by the esoteric movement of theosophy, led by Helena Blavatsky. Blavatsky incorporated Atlantis into a mystical cosmology involving 7 root races of humanity. Her 4th root race, the Atlanteans, were not just highly advanced, they were spiritual beings with flying vehicles. But they became naughty and corrupt, using black magic, which ultimately led to the continent's destruction. Blavatsky added the concept of advanced magic and introduced the sister myth of the lost continent of Lemuria. The idea that Atlanteans had flying vehicles, often called Velixi, came from merging the Atlantis myth with descriptions of Vimanas found in ancient Hindu epics, a process called pseudo-historical syncretism. The psychic, Edgar Cayce, 1920s to 1940s. The final and perhaps most defining layer of the modern myth came from American psychic Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. Cayce gave hundreds of readings describing a civilization torn apart by a conflict between the spiritual law of one and the corrupt sons of Belial. Most importantly, Cayce is the sole and exclusive origin of the crystal power theory. He described the Great Crystal, or Tuai stone, as a massive cylindrical prism housed in a central temple that served as the entire civilization's power source, driving vehicles and communication. In Cayce's version, the fall of Atlantis was not divine punishment, but a technological disaster. The sons of Belial allegedly tuned up their crystal to too high a frequency, causing the generator to overload, triggering the volcanic and geological cataclysm. This technological fall is exactly what you see in modern films like Disney's Atlantis: The Lost Empire. When people go looking for Atlantis today, they are almost never looking for Plato's Bronze Age ringed city. They are looking for Edgar Cayce's high-tech, crystal-powered utopia.
Because the modern Atlantis is so compelling, people have searched the globe for physical evidence. The single, clear geographical fact Plato gave us, beyond the Pillars of Hercules in the Atlantic Ocean, is often ignored to force theories into place. Here are the 3 most compelling and most refuted modern theories. The Aegean hypothesis. Santorini/Thera, the theory. Atlantis is a distorted memory of the catastrophic volcanic eruption of the island of Thera, modern Santorini, around 1600 BCE, which heavily impacted the Bronze Age Minoan civilization. The parallels are intriguing. The Minoans were a dominant naval power, and Thera was circular before it exploded. The refutation. This hypothesis is arguably refuted. First, chronology. Plato dated Atlantis to circa 9600 BCE. The Thera eruption was circa 1600 BCE. That is an 8,000-year discrepancy. Second, location. Thera is in the Aegean Sea, nowhere near the Atlantic or the Pillars of Hercules. Third, aftermath. The Minoans were not destroyed overnight. They survived the eruption and continued as a glorious society for 200 more years. The Atlantic prophecy. The Bimini Road. The theory. In 1968, divers near Bimini in the Bahamas discovered a submerged, half-mile-long formation of massive, seemingly cut limestone blocks. This discovery was instantly celebrated as the fulfillment of Edgar Cayce's specific prophecy that Atlantis remnants would rise again near Bimini in exactly 1968 or 1969. The refutation. The scientific consensus is that the road is a natural phenomenon. The formation is known as beach rock, which naturally fractures into rectangular blocks over time. Radiocarbon dating proves the formation is only 2,000 to 4,000 years old, far too young to be Atlantis. The Sahara hypothesis. The reshot structure. The theory. This theory, popularized by recent documentaries and online channels, identifies Atlantis with the reshot structure, a stunningly circular, 40-kilometer diameter geological formation in Mauritania, West Africa, often called the Eye of the Sahara. Proponents note the visual match to Plato's concentric rings and the presence of black, white, and red rock as described by Plato. Furthermore, the structure's low-elevation salt blemishes suggest it was once underwater, and the immense water erosion marks point to a cataclysmic flood. The alleged destruction date of Atlantis, 11,600 years ago, also aligns compellingly with the known global climate catastrophe called the Younger Dryas. The refutation. Despite the compelling coincidences. First, geology. The reshot structure is a classic, well-studied, and entirely natural geological feature formed over 100 million years ago by differential erosion of alternating rock layers. It was not formed by water or human hands. Second, logistics. It currently sits 1,300 feet above sea level and hundreds of miles inland. Third, archaeology. Decades of investigation have found a complete lack of evidence for any major city, only simple Paleolithic tools. In nearly 2 centuries of searching, and despite the popularity of these theories, archaeologists have yielded not a single shard of pottery that verifies the existence of a lost, advanced civilization.